Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Charles Thornburg. I'm the founder and CEO of Civitas Learning, and I'll start with just a quick little story on kind of my own path, what inspired me to start this business in the first place. I am a serial entrepreneur in education, so I literally bought my first education company when I graduated from college. One of the little-known silver linings of the student loan crisis is there's a whole generation of students utterly desensitized to debt. And therefore, in my case, more than willing to take on a bunch more of it, buy a business, and kind of jump right into one of the very few industries I knew anything about as a 22-year-old. But I bought an education company. I took the content from that business and created my first educational technology business. Ended up ultimately selling that business to Kaplan, where I got to work with many great colleagues and friends that are here at this event actually this week and every previous year. Built two other educational technology businesses kind of in that same first phase of my career before joining Kaplan, and then really spent about 9 years at Kaplan as sort of an in-house entrepreneur. Half my time on the K-12 side, half my time on the higher education side. And I came to the idea for Civitas Learning really as a customer first. So when I moved in 2005 from Kaplan's K-12 business to our higher education business, I saw a bit of what it was to be an administrator in higher education, and in particular an administrator of sort of large-scale, very dynamic, digitally driven higher education institutions, and found that there was an enormous amount of data available, but it was scattered across multiple systems. There was no platform for creating kind of consistent insight or analysis out of student learning data, and ultimately we had very few levers we could effectively pull in managing those institutions to try to improve student outcomes. And so really we built Civitas Learning to take this mountain and rapidly growing mountain of data available to higher education administrators and better deploy it to kind of improve learning outcomes. And I'll talk here a bit about specifically what outcomes we're working on. A little bit about the business. First of all, we were funded kind of on a Series A stage or sized seed round in July of 2011. Mark Milliron, Adam Dell, and myself are our board members. We're at about 23 employees now. And we started by engineering very carefully a group of institutions with which to work through the first phase of this work. So we pulled together 2 community colleges, 2 four-year public institutions, and 2 for-profit institutions in our initial work. North Star for us, the problem that we're trying to solve is extremely easy to define, incredibly difficult to actually have an impact on. But the United States has been plummeting in its rank in the world in terms of educational attainment at the higher ed level. These statistics are particularly among 25 to 34-year-olds. Graduating students more effectively at a higher rate that's our North Star. That's what we're working with institutions to try to achieve. Current rates are shockingly low. And in particular, one of the things I think many folks who don't live and breathe this market every day don't have a good familiarity with is what's coming. So a lot of what we saw in the for-profit industry around really high-pressure legislative and regulatory influence over the course of the last 5 or 6 years is now starting to manifest in the not-for-profit sector. So we're seeing this increased scrutiny on accountability, on graduation rates, on completion rates starting to wash over the publicly funded institutions in particular in this country. And that's manifesting with 33 of 50 states right now either having already made the move or in process of making the move from enrollment-based funding to performance-based funding. So while these were already enormously important issues and really the heart and soul of what educational administrators, generally speaking, got into the profession to accomplish, creating more graduates, more effective educational outcomes for students is only becoming more important over the course of the next few years. So simplified into sort of third grade drawings, what is it that we actually are doing? So we are pulling heterogeneous data from all sorts of different data systems and sources at the campus, the learning management system, the student information system, the CRM, separate systems that are often used to track student utilization of different resources across the campus. We're pulling all that information in to one centralized data model, and then we're building a series of predictive models on top of that help not just identify the drivers of success and failure at that institution, but actually influence decisions throughout the student life cycle to improve them. So if you think about all of our college experiences, they're informed by lots and lots of decisions. Some big ones, like what we decide to major in or what classes we decide to take in any given term. Some smaller ones, like what we decide to work on this evening, maybe what delivery modality to take a course in. Students going forward are going to be thinking about things like, do I take an online or blended or on-ground class? Do I want to go with a competency-based approach or a MOOC-based approach? in the midst of all of this sort of impending re-engineering of the sector, there's no consistent data infrastructure with which to understand which of those decisions actually produce good outcomes and which produce bad outcomes, and for which students. It was maddening to be an administrator and to know that every single day there were all these decisions being made across your institution by faculty, by advisors, by students themselves, and by administrators. There was no way to really understand and capture which one of those decisions were leading to success and which ones weren't, and then to create a feedback loop on that. So ultimately what we're doing is we're creating a series of front-end apps on top of these predictive models that actually help to influence decisions throughout the student life cycle and across constituencies at our partner institutions, ultimately leading to success. Graduation is a starting point, clearly moving on to gainful employment and helping students not just graduate, but to graduate into good jobs is what's next after that. The approach we're using, because we're looking to move what is essentially the most highly leveraged metric at any institution, which is term-over-term persistence and ultimately graduation rate, that approach means that there's immediate ROI to the institutions that we're working with, and we're seeing that be borne out already in our early efforts. So we're building an organizing layer for higher ed data. Part of the reason no one's done this kind of work before in this way is it's incredibly difficult and expensive to do this, particularly at the start. We're pulling data, as I said, from across a number of different systems at each institution into a consistent data model, but we're also building that consistency across institutions more broadly. We're then deploying predictive analytics, so building institution-specific predictive models on top of those data sets, launching, as I said, these targeted SaaS applications to help advise students, faculty, advisors, and administrators on how to make better decisions based on what really is happening at their institution. And we're building a community of schools and data. So 3 million student records and 15 million course enrollment records just among our first 6 institutions that we're working with. Ultimately, we're building models that can be deployed broadly across institutions. So not only can we help schools understand better what's driving success or failure at their institution, but we can find the big drivers of success and failure that hold up across the higher education infrastructure. Perfect. Glad there were no questions.